All right, welcome back. We've got Dr. Olukayode Ajulo, OON. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria and Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice for Ondo State. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, good morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. So I imagine that you've been keeping well. But focusing on the judiciary, we know how important that aspect of our society is, the arm of government, because yes, this summit that the AGF and lawyers, senior lawyers are attending, trying to find a way to ensure justice delivery is a lot better, improve the confidence that Nigerians have with the judiciary, such that even when elections come and go, we know that we can beat our chest that we trust the judiciary to do the right things. Because people have different impressions of the judiciary. So if you could just give us perhaps like a summary of sorts in terms of the mindset of those who are attending that conference. What are they thinking of doing to change the narratives of the judiciary in the country at the moment?
Well, thank you very much. You mentioned the issue of narratives, particularly the way the justice in Nigeria is being perceived. First, I think it is right to say that virtually all over the world, everybody will seem to have some perspective of how justice should be. But this has been a great concern to Nigerians, particularly the stakeholders. And if you remember last year, the Nigerian Bar Association have such a summit, but it is more or less a Nigerian Bar Association driven summit. But this year, the one that was just recently concluded, it is more like a holistic one, where, it's like I told someone, I say it's even as if we're having a national conference, but now on judiciary, because it is awesome. And I believe, if I have the time, it's just for us to commend and to salute those that put this together. From the Minister of Justice, that Prince Lateef Fagbemi, the PAM Secretary, even the President, the Senate President, the CJ, and all those civil societies, and virtually even including the Chief Judge of each state. You can see virtually who is who when it comes to stakeholding in judiciary. Everybody seems to be there. And I want to say, this will be the first time we'll be having that. And that should show how important. Even you'll be shocked to see that the Chief of Defense Staff was even there. And you'll find that everyone, like I told someone else, it's like we're having a national Independence Day, where, because that's when you see virtually everybody coming together. And this is like a all year for judiciary and for justice. And I think we need to commend the initiative, the idea. And basically, it is not only to change the narratives, it is to ensure that justice is done the way it should be. And the meeting, and particularly, let me use the summit, even went through virtually everything that's been said. Are we going to talk about delivery, access to justice, human rights? We're talking about the gender, most of all those vulnerables, and even coming to the remuneration of justice, the justices, virtually all. And that is the essence itself, is to ensure that when it comes to justice, because what many people do not know is this: justice shapes the society, even economically wise. Many people wanted to come to Nigeria to bring their funding, but when they realize that, those people, they don't appreciate, or they don't respect their law, they don't respect the justice delivery system is zero, they will take a U-turn and look for somewhere. I know of a fact that many people, particularly when we talk of arbitration, many people will tell you, don't ever include Nigeria in where we should determine this agreement we're having, because they know that it will be delayed. When you have a contract that maybe just for 5 years, the litigation alone will take about 10 years. Why should I put my money there? So it is something that went far, and I think the only thing I can say is just to salute first, because the initiative is so grand. Virtually all the attorney generals in the country were there. All the chief judge of each state were there. Everyone there to discuss. And at the end of the day, the idea and the initiative and the drive, the attitude is that we must reform our justice system.
Now, I know that this is not this perspective or questions, because we have a lot of summits for different sectors, and the challenge has always been moving it to the next step. So for this one, I know it's early days yet because some other things will come up later today about this same matter.
Yeah.
What indications do you get? For instance, when people say, how do we know that at the end of the day, because the challenge for that judiciary is huge.
Yeah.
Some parts of it, you need to change the laws. National Assembly will come in.
Yeah, sure.
Some you need to have executive sign off on it. Some you need to ensure the way they are appointed also is addressed.
Okay.
What indication do you see for this summit to tell you that at the end of the day, there will be huge impact?
No, let's start with the fact that not only that we have the judge, like the Nigerian parlance where everybody will discuss, because Nigeria, we seem to have solution to all the problem. If you can bring any problem on the table, people will we ventilate it, we interrogate it and say, oh, this is what it is. But unlike every other summit that have been, apart from discussing the problem, there has been a lay down where participants discuss how to resolve that problem. Not only that, the step to be taken, like for example, when we talk of issue of access to justice, to fast track justice delivery system, we identified our laws, particularly the Constitution. There are some let me use the word egalitarian reform, that there will be need to alter some of the provision of the Constitution. And all that, almost, I can, from my thinking, almost 12 provision that needs. Are we going to talk of the numbers of judges that should be in High Court or Federal High Court? Before, they will tell you before, not up to 100, now it's more than 100. You know what I'm trying to say? Are we going to talk about the issue of the appointment of judges, the composition of the NJC, because that's the overall health of the Nigerian judicial system? You will find that even when it comes to access to justice, how cases can go to Supreme Court, High Court, all those ones, because most of the things that have been stifling this is that sometimes you may have intention, but no matter how great your intention, you must still go with the law. And if the law should say this is the way and manner you can bring matter to court, and you believe that you must go the other way, the only way to fast track is to first tinker with the provision of the Constitution. All those ones were there. You can see it was well presented, that I want to believe that in the next few weeks, months, there will be, as God will have it, the National Assembly is thinking of amending the Constitution. I'm sure most of those resolutions, most of those, what we agree, will be sent to them, and I'm very sure this will be clear. And apart from that, there are many, for example, we're talking about magistrate. Let me use one word, magistrate. Up to now, they are not, by the Constitution, they are not being viewed as a judicial officer. But with this discussion, I saw a proposal where the law, that's our Constitution, must include them, because most of the majority of cases have even been dispensed in all such level. Now, you can see, and amendment of judges, their numbers will be increased, and before you increase any their numbers, you must tinker, alter the Constitution. All those were there. These are the things that, for example, we're talking of fundamental human right. There are many cases, many proposals to strengthen Legal Aid Council of Nigeria. There are many proposals to even talk of funding. There are some funds that ought to be made available for some victims. All those who were there. It is look. If one should continue to discuss this, I think you need to have a clear day where this should be
like
discussed.
a more robust conversation.
Yes, certainly.
I mean, journalists right now at the Ministry of Justice, because that communique is coming out. The communique from the summit, it came out at they said 9 a.m. That was the time they said they were going to bring it out. Now, we had Mr. Wahab Shitu, SAN, on the program yesterday, and he mentioned something that I noticed that you haven't talked about. With all of the reforms, no matter how many reforms we do, the major issue of interference, that major issue of interference needs to be addressed. And even though he didn't want to name names or go really into details about it, but we do understand what he means by that, where we have a situation where cases are constantly being interfered with by people from other arms or the political class. So these are some of the issues. How will this summit address an issue like that? Okay, now let me start. When it comes to interference with judicial process, first, one thing you have to know, it has to do with the individual that sit on that seat, individual and the institution. First, institution has to be strengthened, and that is one of the things that was discussed. Like, let me give you an example out of the numerous one. Like, the state
Judicial Service Commission, the composition of State Judicial Service Commission, you find out that most, apart from the statutory personnel that will constitute the body, every other person have been appointed by the governor. Governors seem to have so much force, particularly when you have about 4, 5, or 6 of your appointees are sitting in a place where about 6 or 7 are. In that part of the resolution, which I pray will be implemented, there will be a way to widow that. And apart from that, when it comes to appointment of judicial officer, you can see in the implementation, there are many ways. Now, the issue of return should not be quantitative, it must be qualitative. Then the character, the integrity is if there is more premium on that character integrity. Look, no matter how, there are some people that they can do anything, they can even mop floor. You don't even need to for any executive interference before they will start doing that. There are some judges that that no judge, no executive, they are near them. We know them. And we know some that they are not, the executive don't even need them, but they will go to koto to any executive. So what matters most is the appointment. Who are you putting on that seat to work? So when it comes to executive interferences, the issue here is who and how did they get to that seat? And Nigeria is not bereft of great people with solid character, with good ethical concept and to make things work. I know of a judge that you dare even come to his office, to his court, even as a government official, to mention your case or you ask for adjournment, they will tell you no way. And I know of some that will even be looking for, did you want adjournment, try to patronize you. So what matters most, first, is what this submit addresses, particularly when it comes to the appointment, who to be on that seat.
In the states.
In the state, even in federal.
In the states.
In the federal. Like, for example,
in the states, because what was discussed yesterday was that issue that happened in Kogi State.
Yes.
And he was talking about how mistakes can happen, some judges can make mistakes, but then again, there could be interference. In the states, that the independence of the judiciary at the state level, both from interference from the state executive and financial independence. Yeah. Are those things being addressed in this?
Yeah, it's been addressed. Like, for example, I just mentioned, when I mentioned Judicial Service Commission, that is state. That the federal is what they have is NJC. At the state, we talked about that because, you have to first check the body that oversees this thing. Once the body is cracked, nothing can really work. And that's one thing. And apart from that, and let us be sincere, everybody always thinks about not only about the state, what about the federation? Like, part of the recommendation is to look for a way how to look at the composition of NJC and to look at how the Chief Justice of Nigeria should these roles in Federal Judicial Council will be a bit relaxed in such a way that at both the two bodies, it will be the chairman of this and chairmans of that. There are many recommendations. Even there's one recommendation that even asks that the chairmanship of that APES judicial system should be rotated between those from the NBA, from the executive, and from the other group. It is so many, so lofty as it is now. And one thing I think I need to do, that the judiciary, that judicial system has done theirs, the NBA has done it, everybody has done it. The next is now what we should focus on our legislature, because all this recommendation, most of it, you will need law to back it up. You need law to be amended, and as it is. But with what I've seen, with the recommendation, if it is fully or substantially implemented, we're in for good when it comes to judicial system in Nigeria.
What would you consider as low-hanging fruits that can be done, because some of these things take time, that such that when they adopt those ones, at least you could see some traction?
No, I think one of the first things is that, you know my interest mostly when it comes to human rights. Low-hanging fruit, like today, there should be access to justice. That one, sometimes we don't even need to change any law or any constitution. Yeah. That needs to be done. For example, the way and manner the system, the matter the way it should be dispensed with in time, because many people are getting complacent, particularly when it's seen that I'm filing a case today and you say, oh, I know someone that said, I filed this case yesterday and I'm very sure it will be my grandchild that will get the fruit of the labor. You know what I'm trying to say? Those are the few things that can be done. If justice can be fast-tracked, if there's access to justice, like there's one lofty recommendation that we're talking of funding. There's supposed to be some fund for when it comes to human rights, so that others can be able to access justice. Like, I need to digress a little. Part of low-hanging fruit is what we are doing in Ondo State. If you remember recently, we talked about having 273 aides. Many people may not understand it. The essence of it is that how many lawyers will be able to monitor most of all these police stations. This is where we have a violation of human rights. And if you can see some people voluntarily, without collecting any state money, to give the guarantee that they will look for a way, there will be effective monitoring of how the detainees are being treated, what is happening in our police station, because there are some police stations that in this country that maybe no lawyers have ever gone there to even give any advice. So these are the things that I believe will be a low-hanging fruit. And I must commend Nigerian lawyers, because most of them, they are more focused on people-oriented justice than cash and carry justice. Many people are ready to stand for people without even asking for a dime, to ensure that things is done. And when we can do this, we're in for good.
All right, we'll continue this in just a moment, but just give us a moment, we'll be back.
Well, thank you for staying with us. Well, Mr. Ajilo, one of the issues that I perceive that a number of people have had to handle is the issue of ignorance. People don't know certain provisions of the law. And it would seem like sometimes people are set up, so to speak, by the fact that these laws exist. They don't even know that the laws exist. But they are always, of course, we've heard that several times, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So is there any way that this justice reform, project that is ongoing now, can address that fact, the fact that people are not even aware of the laws, whether they are federal laws or state laws, and in a way that they don't get caught in it one way or the other?
Well, thank you very much. When it comes to issue of ignorance, the law itself is expected to be known to all. By the fact, efficacy of the law is for you to know. So that is why you find that the ignorance of the law is not an excuse. But whereas one of the fundamentals of the discussion in this summit is about access to justice. Access to justice starts with knowing what the law says, knowing what to do and what you should not do. And that is why you find that part of what the summit discussed about is there's a lot of partners. If you remember, some minutes ago I mentioned Legal Aid Council of Nigeria, that's LACON. I mentioned about Human Rights Commission, National Human Rights Commission, and most of all those people, their duty basically is not only to safeguard you, but to let you know what your law is. And again, I think it must be the duty of Nigerian populace to have respect for the law. When you have respect for the law, it will be quite innate to you to know what the law is saying. But unfortunately, we are in a country where most of us don't have respect for the law. The only respect we have is for our whims and caprice of what interests us, what helps us. And that is why we have all this issue. The day we believe that the first things to be done for you to know, after knowing that I'm a human being living in Nigeria, the next thing that should be things for me is law. I know of many people that can quote the Bible or Quran from the beginning to the end, but to ask them, tell me what the chapter 1 of the Constitution says, they say, what is my problem with that? But whereas that is what defines your existence as human being. So this summit has discussed that. That's why I must tell you that one of the main thing that this summit premium on is access to justice. Access to justice is the same thing as access to law, in knowing what the law is saying, in knowing what it is. And like I mentioned, people seem to have disregard for law, and when you have disregard for law, you don't even know what the law is saying.
Mr. Ajilo,
so that one should not be an excuse.
My apologies, but sometimes it will seem like the laws were set up in a way that people won't even have access to it. Let me give you the example of a law in Lagos. I don't know what the title of that law is, you may, that it's about tenancy. It's about, people renting houses in the state. I think it's called tenancy law, something like that, that people shouldn't actually pay any more than maybe 6 months or so, and all of that. But there are still environments in the same city of Lagos where, even the landlords will say that it's not the government that built the house for them, and consequently they still go on the way they always did, asking for 1 year rent, 6 months rent, even 2 year rents in some cases. But many people, of course, are not aware of this law. Those who are aware of it find it difficult enforcing it. They can't even compel it because they may not even get access to the house in the first place. How does this justice reform program, for instance, address that kind of need? And that's just one example in 36 states of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Now, let me address this by saying that the scenario you painted, it is not about ignorance of the law. It is a deliberate attempt to stifle the law and now claim ignorance of what is happening. Like I mentioned earlier, knowing law starts with your total regard for law. Now, another thing Nigerians seem to understand is that this law, they are the one that made this law, though they may say that I wasn't there. But don't forget that you cast your vote for someone, and the vote you are casting, that's why many people, they are only interested in the naira, the kobo they will collect before casting the vote. And after casting the vote, you never even bother to know who is representing you, forgetting that any law in this country the coming of that law is because some people who you and I put there to do it. And it's their duty to report back, but Nigeria will never ask them, what are you doing, only for them to say, give me 2 naira, give me 3 naira, what is the palliative? It's only in Nigeria you see that lawmakers will be doling out some palliative instead for them to do quantity and quantitative law that will be for the good of all people. With that alone, you know that nobody should even complain about being ignorance of the law, because after all, who is making this law? Your representative.
Well, Mr. Ajilo,
representatives come from you.
Yeah. We both know that there isn't I don't know if there is, but I doubt if there is a budget for publicizing laws that are made. And so perhaps that's one of the ways.
Budget. Let me quickly put you.
Okay.
Let me put it very well. Let me put it that there is budget and there is procedure. I'm sure you must be hearing about Gazette. A social thing has been gazetted. The government always have their own publisher. They have their own publication, like Nigeria has its own publisher. And all these are the things. Like what I'm saying, that is one. Apart from that, individual representatives from the State House of Assembly down to the federal constituency, down to the Senate, individual senators, they are answerable to you. But unfortunately, we seem to be oblivious of that, deliberate oblivious of that, pursuing something else, and that is the problem. But having said that, I believe access to justice covers all this, because apart from access to justice, don't forget that the major partner of access to justice are those civil rights organizations, are those partners, and all of them, they are doing something great. And that is why you see some of us shouting. I know some people will even accuse you that why is only you, like you see Falana, the Femi Falana, senior advocate, saying this and that. That is part of access to justice for people to know. But the question is how many people are listening to him except it affects them? Once it never affects them, they will think that, oh, he's just making noise. But that is the essence. But when access to justice is fully interrogated, you know that all this thing is being taken care of.
Okay.
Nigerians need to know what it is. They need to know their laws.
Okay, good. But Mr. Ajilo, how about, so what would you recommend? Because, Gazette, well, that's Gazette. I don't know how many young people, for instance, who are bound by these laws know the difference between a law that is gazetted and a law that is made public or publicized for them to be aware that these things exist in the first place. So on the one hand is the language of the laws. On the other hand is the fact that the access to the information about these laws is very few and far between. You've laid it at the table of the legislators, the representatives of the people. What would you suggest to be their approach to making these laws that they make known to the people that send them to do the work?
I think we have discussed this. What matters most for your regard and respect for law and for your interest? Let me give you an example. If today a rumor come out that, oh, Bobrisky did this, before you go to the internet, you will find out that more than 1 million people has gone to that site to find out what it is. And the law on tenancy, go on the site to know how many people search on it. You find out that it may be 2 or 3. What matters most, my brother, is the interest. The interest you have there. If somebody should ask of Cubana high priest has been arrested, go to the site. More than 3 million visitors has gone to that site. Then check the law on just firearm. You will find out that maybe 2 or 3 people visited in the last 4 days. All is about interest. We need to have interest, and like that's why I mentioned the interest come with the regards to law. You have to respect the law. You have to do fine regards with the law, and that's what makes it so. Anything else, apart from what this reform is doing, I think is just trying to add more to it. What matters most is the interest, the premium you play in the law of the land. Once that won't happen, then we'll have we'll have this kind of problem. The Gazette is the normal procedure, and how many people are even asking all those questions? People are ready to check the Facebook or to check the Instagram. I hardly see people, only few or 2 lawyers that we see them discussing about law on Facebook or Instagram. But when it comes to how to do what did they call? What did they mention some name? How to look beautiful? How to change your body shape? You see women 500,000 visiting the site at the same time. I think we don't need to deceive ourselves. What matters most is interest. The law is there, and it's the law for everyone to know what the law is saying. But the question is who is paying regards to that?
How to do makeup too. It also trends. I know I'm looking for trouble. Okay, but
you are. What is wrong?
The law protects me.
The law protects you from the women that are about to be observing you.
But if you could tell us, I mean, in terms of the human rights issues, as basic as they are, they're still we're still very far in terms of achieving some basics. What is it that you see in that regard in terms of how we're set up about even basic approach to human rights issues that you like to see change across board anywhere?
Well, let me start with the fact that when it comes to human rights basically is for the people. Like I do tell people, only recently that you see elites in Nigeria talked about human rights. And what about the numbers of the elites in Nigeria? Let's say even they are even less than 1% of the entire population. That means that the 99% are those that you can know is huge. Almost, let's put it at 190 million Nigerians need human rights. And it's very costly. That is one of the problems. And that is why I noticed that in part of the reform, I read somewhere where we talked about human rights funds. There's supposed to be a fund set aside to do all this. Because to go to court, I just mentioned it. Just think how many police stations and police house stations we have in Nigeria. And it is expected that at least each of those police stations should have the service of a lawyer. Then just think of the number of lawyers that will be deployed to that, and think of how much that they will need to fund certain. And that's why the idea of my 273 that people turn upside down comes from that. Each of the police station, each of the prison must have at least one time or the other the full service of a lawyer at all time. And I think let me use this opportunity to thank those who have accepted to be part of that voluntary scheme. It is all about charity. The problem with the human rights is so huge. Unfortunately, there are those who do it is like the issue of this gender and people with disability. They are quite huge, but the resources to fund it, it's always the problem. Just imagine how much you need for a service of a lawyer, how much a lawyer will ask from you. Yeah. Let's even assume that the lawyer is asking for 150 per case. Then multiply that with the issues, that is good. That how huge. Even, I think I need to say this. Most of all those institutions that we have, how are they funding them? You go to National Human Rights Commission, their office today, there will be not even no space for car park. You have to trek for almost a kilometer to get there. Somebody slapped you. You're already smarting from that slap and feeling furious that I'm going to report them. The procedure to report them is even more than the slap, because if you park your car somewhere, your car will be clamped. You have to pay extra money. You can know, and this is not only even going to police station. Sometimes you go for something else, another one will come. That's why you see some people are even avoiding. They will avoid all those institutions because they know it is even more not only cumbersome, costly to even ventilate their grievance, their violation, to reverse it. Whereas you are asking for to reverse the violation, whereas in the process another much bigger violation is being meted on you. You can see it is huge. The reformers try as much as possible to address that issue, and if it is fully implemented, I'm very sure it won't be like yesterday. It will be a further step.
All right, Dr. Olukaide Ajulo, OON, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice for Ondo State. Thank you for your time here today.
Thank you.